I grew up during the rise of CG animation films. Movies like Ants, Toy Story, and A Bug's Life were slowly becoming the norm. Before, 2D films like The Lion King, The Iron Giant, and Tarzan incorporated CG in their films to pull off effects that couldn't be done in 2D. With computers, everything became much more easier to draw and color digitally rather than by hand. But at the same time, animation at the digital age became a sort of a lazy imitation of its former roots. Canadian animation, for example, proved how over-reliance on Flash can ruin a show's quality, aesthetically, and of substance. Animation has come a long way since its primitive upbringing during the silent era of film. In 1918, Max Fleischer's Inkwell series revolutionized the usage of rotoscoping. It was a technique used in animation in achieving lifelike realistic motion. But then, there came Walt Disney. Disney had experience from his short-lived Laugh-O-Grams back in Minnesota, but he understood what animation was just like Max did. He created the Alice shorts, inspired by the Lewis Carroll book Alice in Wonderland. Here, he created the first hybrid of live action and animation. Primitive, mind you, but this was prior before Roger Rabbit refined the formula. But Walt Disney was an innovator in animation at every opportunity. He created the first sound cartoon in 1928's Steamboat Willie, starring and debuting Mickey Mouse. In 1932, he introduced the once monochromatic screen to Technicolor with the Silly Symphony short Flowers and Trees. And by 1937, Disney reached new heights by creating the first ever animated feature film, Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs. Snow White proved to be a financial success, and to capitalize on that success, Paramount released the Fleischer Studios classic, Gulliver's Travels. The thing that the Fleischer Studios had over Disney is that they had the utilization of rotoscoping, and because of that, Gulliver's Travel was an artistic success, monumental even in animation. But Walt Disney always knew one thing when he saw it: he can always one-up the competition in return, and he did just that. In 1940, two Disney films debuted. Pinocchio was released to generally positive reviews, but there was another film, one that would revolutionize animation in ways never before thought: Fantasia. What was once an attempt to boost Mickey Mouse's declining popularity became one of the most expensive, emotional, and gorgeous films ever produced by the House of Mouse. Fantasia was a personal project to Walt Disney. He wanted the viewers to feel and witness music coming to life. Composer Leopold Stokowski and the Philadelphia Orchestra were the driving force for the animators. They were required to imagine the unimaginable. Let's briefly glance at every single segment that Fantasia offered us. Let's start with Johann Sebastian Bach's Toccata and Fugue. It was primarily chosen to showcase the bridging of the orchestra and the animation. And what better song to choose than a piece of abstract music? But how do you visualize said abstract music? You have the imagery reflect this dreamlike composition. The sounds of violins are twinkling stars, and the accompanying swaying lines form the violin bows that the orchestra are using. Following was the Nutcracker Suite. Because of its recognition in the world of ballet, Disney decided that rather than having a standard ballet that everyone could have seen at, say, a high school auditorium, they chose to pair the music with the transformation of the seasons, all the while maintaining the motion of ballet through fairies sprinkling life in nature's flora, the descending leaves, and having that said floor perform a rousing dance number, a mindset we will see later on in the film. With the Sorcerer's Apprentice being the centerpiece of the film, they needed to have a star, in this case, Mickey Mouse. But Mickey had to properly emote along with Stokowski's score. This meant that Mickey had to get redesigned. Prior to Fantasia, the best way to describe Mickey Mouse was circles on circles on circles. So who redesigned the most simplest of character designs, you may ask? Fred Moore. Moore started with giving Mickey a more childlike face, a more malleable body, and added pupils to give more expression than whatever dot eyes could ever give you. And with that came one of his most iconic appearances in animation history. What makes it a bit funny though is that for a little gag, they modeled the eponymous sorcerer after Walt Disney himself. Stink eye and everything. With more directing, the animation was able to cooperate and correspond properly with the soundtrack, in more ways than one, mind you. The Rite of Spring was selected as a okay, I was saying. The Rite of Spring was selected as a way to tell a story. Instead of it being a series of tribal dances but like it was intended to, Rite of Spring was all about the birth of Earth, the dinosaurs, and extinction. The animators had to go above and beyond using tricks and special effects. For example, they submerged paint cans in water to spill to make smoke-like patterns. They later used those effects for reference in order to represent the smoldering heat and smoke emitting from a volcano. Disney animators even went out of their way to ensure that dinosaurs look in no way cartoonish. For a time, you couldn't get this type of realism in dinosaurs even before the likes of Land Before Time, even if the dinosaurs still somehow look cartoonish. The Pastoral Symphony is unique. This segment focuses on the aspects of Greek mythology, all the while designed with a vibrant color hue, utilizing both primary and secondary color palettes. Though, to be honest, I kinda get bored with this one. Well, until Zeus starts being a dick and casts Thundaga below. Fucking asshole. The Dance of the Hours, on the other hand, is a parody of the snooty, highbrow ballets and dance numbers of the time. Even the choice of music was part of the joke for being, quote, being too overfamiliar. The title isn't just for marquee value either, it's a literal dance of the hours. At dawn is the dance number with the ostriches, at midday comes the hippos and the elephants, and at the evening, a forbidden liaison with the hippo and the alligator. But what made this segment pretty popular was pretty much the chaos. But with that chaos comes the ballet it was meant to have. In spite of it being a cartoonish parody of the medium, Dance of the Hours is almost as ballet as you can get, all the while keeping it a lighthearted tone and oh my gosh, he's gonna eat me! Oh, okay. Sorry about that. But at the end of this, there comes a question. How do you end a film of such grandiose and humor? Easy. You end it with a battle between the profane and the divine. The pairing of Modest Mussorgsky's Night on Bald Mountain and Schubert's Ave Maria is simply genius, easily the highlight of the entire movie. Night on Bald Mountain showcased the embodiment of evil summon his minions of goblins, harpies, ghosts, and demons, only to destroy them. He turns elegant flame dancers into farm animals, only to toss them into the fiery pits of Bald Mountain. And he's just having a fucking ball all the while. Walt clearly wanted the audience to be shocked and horrified at such visuals of disgust and sin, and he succeeded in doing just that. And as Satan and his followers are enjoying themselves, the night has to come to an end. The might? Did I say might? The night must come to an end. The morning bells toll, and as the Bane of Evil hides himself and his followers into the mountaintop, comes the most eloquent and adult moment in Disney history. A procession of wise men holding torches venture into a cathedral of trees to the elegant and angelic composition of the Ave Maria in the longest shot ever produced on a multiplane camera. This is by far the most beautiful scene in the entire movie, and it doesn't require extensive knowledge to understand or even feel the religious undertones of this segment. And Fantasia concludes on an optimistic, hopeful look of the future, with the coming dawn.
Well, the world is waiting for a sunrise. End on a sunrise. There's the essence of hope. And they ended with the perfect image of hope, sun coming up.
Given that Fantasia had so much love and attention, Disney decided to not market it as a film. They decided to turn it into a roadshow, playing as a big concert in theaters that you'll have to reserve seats for. Speaking of big concert, what Disney innovated in art and animation, he and Stokowski innovated in sound. There was a foundation to make Fantasia an experience, and with that came the introduction of Fantasound. Without getting too technical, movie theaters back then were only played in monosound, there was no such thing as stereo, but for Fantasia, Disney wanted nothing but the best. He wanted it to sound as if you were there witnessing a live concert, so his team created what we now know as stereophonic surround sound. Now, surround sound was a concept that even before Fantasia was being considered in the works, but as far as we know, Fantasia was the first documented use of surround sound back in 1940. But while this was all in an effort for the film to achieve greatness, it came with a hefty price tag. Disney's film distributor RKO not only halted the road shows, but they cut the 120-minute film into an 80-minute cut for the general audience, removing not only the toccata and fugue segment, but that meant removing Deems Taylor as the master of ceremonies and the narrator for most of Fantasia. RKO went as far as to remove Fantasound and went back to monosound, and of course, all this was done without Walt's input. Disney wanted viewers to not think of Fantasia as just a movie with pretty pictures and a decent score. He wanted it to be an experience, a genuine one at that will play every year with new segments added in. In fact, 6 years later with the Disney film Make Mine Music, the segment Blue Bayou was originally paired with Clair de Lune for Fantasia, but when that plan was cancelled, they instead recycled the original animation and paired it with an original song, removing any essence of Clair de Lune meant for it, though years later it was properly restored with Stokowski's score. But the cuts that RKO made, the cost of Fantasound, and the declining box office in World War II ridden Europe only made Fantasia a commercial failure at launch, resulting in Disney losing a ton of money and had to resort to making package films like Make Mine Music. Walt was hurt by Fantasia's outcome in 1940. He put it best as,
coming into the Fantasia period.
Yeah, that about did it, you know.
But that was a new
artistic
one.
success, financial failure. You know?
Certainly an artistic success. It was a magnificent
Well, there's some people would question that too.
Mickey.
However, it's now being recognized as one of the most finest pieces of film history, and for good reason. It started out as simply the Sorcerer's Apprentice segment just to boost Mickey's declining popularity, but it became a much more refined and personal project of Walt Disney, even more than Snow White could have ever been if I had to think of it. It could be argued that Fantasia is probably one of the best Disney movies ever made, but I know for a fact that it was without a doubt an artistic symphony.
Mr. Stokowski! Mr. Stokowski! My congratulations, sir.
Congratulations to you, Mickey.
Gee, thanks. Well, so long. I'll be seeing you.
Goodbye.